So here we are again, folks. We are the militia. You know, this is getting old. The assault on the Second Amendment. It's getting real old. Uh, Let me explain something to you. First off, don't come at me with the whole "I support the Second Amendment, but dot dot dot." Because here's a little lesson on the English language. If I say that cheeseburger was perfect, but I wish it had Swiss cheese on it, well, then that cheeseburger wasn't perfect, was it? So, when you say "but" after something, typically, there are some exceptions to the rule. However, for the most part, if you say "but" after something, then everything you said before was a lie. You didn't mean it. So don't come at me with that "I support the Second Amendment, but," because you don't. You don't support the Second Amendment. You support it all the way, or you don't at all. The same thing goes with the First Amendment. I support the Second Amendment, but hate speech is bad and should be a crime. So you don't support the First Amendment. Hate speech is not a thing, folks. It can't be legally quantified. There are no laws against it. It's not a thing. It's something made up by modern day humans. And just because you make something up doesn't make it a thing. George Lucas made up Jedis, don't mean they're real. I support the Second Amendment, but. But what? But I want universal background checks. Yeah? Well, there's already a background check when you purchase a firearm. That's a fact. 100%. I have enough to know. Well, what about, shut up. Just shut up. I don't want to hear about your gun show loopholes, because that's a myth. I don't want to hear about universal background checks, because guess how you're going to implement universal background checks? With a universal registry. You need a national firearms registry in order to implement universal background checks. And you know what a national firearms registry leads to? Confiscation of weapons. That's it. That's all it's good for. And quite frankly, this other thing I keep hearing, no one needs an AR-15. Oh, you don't need an AR-15 for defense. Oh, you're right. You're right. I don't need an AR-15 to defend myself. You know what else I don't need? I don't need electricity. I don't need a house. I don't need a car. I don't need shoes. All these are things that you can do without and still survive. You're right. When it comes down to needs, you're right. There's a lot of things you don't need. An AR-15, you're right. You're right. I don't need one. An AK-47, I don't need one. But need is irrelevant. It's not the Bill of Needs. It's the Bill of Rights. You people just... You need to wake up. You need to see the writing on the wall. Some of you are so out of touch that you don't care. Do you know what happens if the Second Amendment goes away? The entire Bill of Rights, the Constitution itself, goes away, because the thing that the Founding Fathers put in place to ensure that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights are withheld is the Second Amendment. It is the amendment that defends the rest. That's why it's the second. It's there for a reason. And then you get the argument, oh, well, it says in the Second Amendment a properly trained militia. Hence the name of the channel, folks. We are the militia. Brief history lesson for you. Do you know that when this country was founded, there was a continental army, there was a federal military, and do you know that at times they had to go and fight against local militias? Because of one reason or another, Reason is irrelevant. The fact remains that there are local militias. The militia and the military are not the same thing. They never were. They were never intended to be. We are the militia, hence the name of the channel. We are the well-regulated militia. The Second Amendment applies to all of us. And if you go into the Supreme Court case that specifically was about the Second Amendment, then the dissenting arguments say that United States citizens have no right to firearms at all. Those are the dissenting arguments. They're the losing side. But if you're not going to say that owning firearms is an individual right, then that's the only other course of action there is to take all weapons away. And if you think for 1 second that our founding fathers, the people who founded this government, that's the way they meant it to be, after they just got done fighting a tyrannical government who came to take their guns, who came to tax them without proper recourse, if you think that's what they intended by the way they wrote the Second Amendment, then I'm sorry, you're mistaken. You're wrong. The Second Amendment is about the defense of ourselves from any threat, both foreign and domestic. Now, do I believe I'm ever going to have to fight my own government? No. At least I hope not. Do you think for 1 second that if somebody comes to try and take away my God-given right to defend myself, that I'm going to allow it? Do you think I'm alone in this idea? I promise you, you're not taking our guns. And as far as a mandatory buyback program goes, come on. You're gonna take my tax dollars to buy my weapons from... I'm buying my own weapons? I'm buying my own weapons away from myself. What idiot thinks this is a good idea? The fact remains, we have a Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. And that right, which shall not be infringed, is penned into the bill itself, and yet is infringed on the daily. Not one more inch. Not as long as I'm breathing. Not one more inch. Pay attention to your local governments. Pay attention to your state governments. Pay attention to the federal government. And contact your representatives when you hear them say some dumbness and say, no, I will not allow it. This is the only way. This is the only way we're going to be able to continue forward as a free nation. And while I have other political issues that I'm not really going to go into at this time, believe what you want. If you think we need universal health care, fine, whatever, believe that. That's fine. You believe that we need open borders. Fine, that's fine. Believe that. If you believe that putting up a border wall means we're going to round up every immigrant in the country, legal or illegal, which is what some of you seem to believe, fine, go ahead, believe that, that's fine. But I'll tell you this, even if you believe all of that, most of which are patently untrue, not the point, even if you believe all of that, you can be put into any concentration camp at any time, for any reason, without a firearm. Hitler took the guns away, then he rounded the Jews up in camps. Stalin took the guns away, And then he rounded up his own countrymen into work camps where more than twice the amount of people Hitler killed died. Ho Chi Minh, Mao Zedong, Fidel Castro, need I go on? Well, Che Guevara hated gay people, by the way. So I get a kick out of it when I see progressive, liberal, leftists, Democrats, whatever you call yourselves these days. I get a kick out of it when I see them wearing Che Guevara shirts and then talking about gay rights. You know, he hated you, right? He wanted you in concentration camps. I actually put some of them into concentration camps, too, if I'm not mistaken. That aside. The only thing stopping them from completely bulldozing you, any of you, is the Second Amendment. So regardless of what your political beliefs are, where your stances are, that's not the point. I said once before in a video that the Second Amendment doesn't care whether you're gay or straight. It doesn't care whether you're trans. It doesn't care whether you make $50,000 or $50. The Second Amendment doesn't care. It's there for you. It's your right as an American. It's the only thing that's in place to protect us. And I know I seem angry, and I am. I'm not going to pretend like I'm not. But the fact remains that I'm more hurt than I am angry. Hurt that the people of the nation that I love would so willingly give up their rights and ask to be made into servants. That hurts me. But hey, I'm just one man, and I can talk till I'm blue in the face, and I know there are a lot of you out there who feel the same way I do, and I appreciate you for it. But at the end of the day, I'm just one man. We all have to band together. We all have to get on the same page. I hope we do. This has been We Are the Militia. Thanks for stopping by. If you enjoyed this video, punch that like button. If you like what you see here, hit that subscribe button. And feel free to leave a comment down below. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Out.